off like a herd of turtles. There's the farm, completely snowed in, and gonna head down and see Bob. A couple, 3 hours out. But figured I'd show a little bit of how deep those snowbanks are, how tall they are. That is as high as my truck, and that's what happens when you live in the Arctic zone. So I came down here and visit Bob, bug him a little bit. And so while we're waiting for him to figure out what he wants to do, look at this thing right here. There's certain saws that just sort of catch your eye. So he has pretty much one of anything on the wall here that's worth buying, right? Because that's what he does. But that one right there just looks cool. And this is one we all hear about, 572, right?
Yep.
And right here is a 565, which is kind of like the same saw. Different price tag.
Well, there's a couple different 70cc out. There's 4 of them, because you got the 72s and the 65s in the 3 and the 5 series. The whole, the whole game here with these 5 series saws, they're kind of like an unknown thing here. And we'll take one of them because you seem to like this one. But we'll bring this over. It's hanging out on a Sunday.
Right next to the bag of chips.
Yeah, we already ate.
That was my lunch.
Good sandwiches across the street. Let's see, a little tool here. Stuff is missing.
I just keep looking at all that space underneath that muffler. I like that.
Want the double wall?
But I like the fact that it just kind of comes down. It's just as total cosmetics. It has absolutely nothing to do with practical. It's just what I like to look at. And I just happen to think that not having that big old bulbous cover up there, that just looks to me like a nicer looking saw. Simple as that.
All right, so a little story here. We're going to take a detour. And we always talk about the 72s and the 62s and the 550s. And there's a whole another series of saws here that, to a certain extent, I think they're kind of misnamed because it caused a lot of confusion. Because for 30 years, the second two numbers here pretty much approximated the the displacement. And as they've come out with all these saws now, it used to be a 365 and 372 on 2 different cylinders and 2 different displacements. And they both, both ran good, as we've kind of proven recently with our 48 millimeter bills on the old chassis.
That's one of those I told you so moments for you.
Yes, it was. I enjoyed it very much. Because A, I was proven right, and B, you just flat out enjoyed those things. You do an awful lot of cut with them. Plus they save on gas. So anyway, they have all these companion models, and there's 5 and soon to be more. You have the 545 as a companion to the 550, the 555 as a companion to the 562. You have the 365, 372, you have the 565, 572, and there's going to be the 585 and the new 592. And in every case, the displacement's the same. Most people look at this and they'll say, oh yeah, this is that's what, 45 cc's? No, it's not. It's the 50 cc cylinder. And as this is a 70 cc saw. And the difference is, they've got a little different air filter here. Got the lower top cover that we actually both agree on. We both like it on this saw.
See, first time for everything.
Yep, that's right. And then there's like different, different color scheme. It's a little bit darker. Here again, this is a 70 cc saw, and the price spread, I got them $100 apart from a 572. Different markets, sometimes it could be a big spread where most people are going to gravitate towards this one. If the spread is a little bit too close, it's kind of natural for people to say, well, I might as well just spend the extra money and get the XP. XP is just like a marketing term. These are essentially the same thing. These 5 series saws that, you know, the end in a 5, they don't have the crank stuffers in them. But, you know, there's some differences in the firmware and stuff. Fundamentally, these are really the same thing. They're close. And the honest truth is, for people that have them both and work them both, I'm talking about, you know,
Cookie cuts.
yeah, cookie cuts with the stopwatch and everything. Yeah, you probably find a little difference. But for guys that are just working the saws, they universally say, there's not that much difference, or you can hardly tell them apart. They're pretty much the same, and that's what they're saying. Nobody says, oh, gee, you know, that the other one blows, you know, the 572 blows this away. That's not happening.
Well, didn't we have one of these up at the farm? Didn't you bring one up?
Yeah, we did, and it's a video from like 2 years ago, about now. And we both had 372 builds that we hot rodded that we were both real impressed with. And I did an X-Torque. I cut even the cylinder skirt things there on the side to get them opened up like we do in the old style. You had, before we were really kind of familiar with the plating coming off on the highway cylinders, you had the 52 millimeter pop-up,
Yeah.
which you had trouble starting it because it had so much compression. And we were both, wow, these are great. And, you know, this thing was stock, not broken in, and turns out it was half a second off of mine and 1 second off of yours.
Yeah.
So
Not enough to
then it
matter.
was like, well, which one would you really rather run? So anyway, nobody else really does this. You know, other companies, and there's not that many more left, but you know, you have all these different alternatives on a Pro chassis. Just because it doesn't say XP doesn't mean it's a homeowner, so obviously it's not. And it even says, see, it says professional right there. Not that you can just go by what it says on a decal, but you have like, you know, 4 or 5 of these models in the lineup that pretty much get lost, and a lot of it has to do with everybody thinks mostly with the size thing. Anyway, we sell a fair amount of them because we got them, you know, priced to fill gaps. You know, I got this right smack in the middle between the 562 and the 572. The honest truth is, most of the people buying these are stepping up from the 562, more so than people stepping down to save $100. But you know, there are some people that do that. Just in the same way, there's people that just buy, you know, the 365X Torques because, you know, hey, I can't really tell the difference. They're pretty much the same. And so there is just that out there. But just to clear it up, there's no difference in displacement.
And the major components, while it may not have a stuffer, the strength of the crank is the same. Bearings are the same, cases are the same, stuff like that.
Yep.
And like you were saying, they might have different firmware, but fundamentally it's a pro level saw. And that's the point. And it looks nicer. So what he was saying, just to clarify, is, you know, of course this is 2021, so these numbers change every year. But he was pointing out the spacing of the pricing, so the 565 versus the one with the big old bump up there. 572 versus 365, which they made some changes on that for this release, versus 372s. And he was saying that more often people will step up from one of these than try to save $100 from a 572. Yeah.
Now there is something notable about this 545. Again, same displacement as the 550, but they got a double spring starter in this thing, and it's really super easy to pull.
So that might be the ultimate old man saw.
Huh?
That might be the old man saw.
Well, it kind of is. Yeah, we do get a lot of customers come in here, and the truth is that they can't pull the rope anymore. And you watch them doing this, and yeah, we're all going to get there. I might end up there myself. But this makes a difference. This thing sells just because of that. And the sweet part is, you know, we sold a few 550s to some older guys too, and they're struggling with it. This is it. You could just replace the starter guts with this kit, which is $20.
Does that,
And then the 550 pulls over as easy as that.
will that kit fit on a 555?
No.
Only the, okay.
No, that's why the guy that bought one of these the other day traded in his 555. Yeah, so this kit doesn't work on any of the other families of saws. It would be nice though if they came out with a kit and you could do 55, 62, 65, and 72 with one kit.
Yeah.
Because they are still using, all the saws use the same starter pulley and starter spring. So this thing actually is a relevant model. We sell them just because of that. And it's actually dramatic to see a guy struggle and then pull this at his normal. Guys would sure like to see what was in those two boxes, but we can't show you them.
So Bob pointed this out, and this is like bullying all you guys are trying to work on the old 550s. That right there, this is a 545, much like the 550, and that right there is the wire. You don't have to pull the flywheel. Now you still got to pull the flywheel of the new 562, right?
Yeah.
But not the 572, and not the 550 Mark II, and not the 545. And
Yeah, it's good stuff. There's that double spring starter and extra spring assist in there. And this just migrates into the 550 starter. There's a couple of guys that...
Well, what if you just buy this? Just buy the complete assembly. How expensive are they?
It's more than 20 bucks.
Yeah.
Which is what that costs.
Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah, just buy the pulley kit. I'm not even sure what it would cost.
Oh, and while he's doing that, I wanted to point out, Bob pointed out, and we didn't put it on video, that between the 572 and 565, like with the old 562, 555, there's a different cylinder, which is really just the transfer cap. It's got a different carburetor. It's got a different ignition system, and it has a different filter system. Those four things for sure are different between the 565, 572, you know, and sure the 572 is going to make more power, but as he was saying, it doesn't really matter. This is a good running saw. I remember the one he brought to the farm. That was a good running saw right there, and I think it looks nicer. This reminds me like the cone heads.
Yeah, if you want to buy the whole starter, it's $65. So obviously it makes more sense just to buy yourself the pulley kit.
Put it on.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's a nice looking little saw there too.
And the new 555s are going to have the same look, assuming they ever ship them.
You don't have any here, I noticed.
No, they've been back order for a while. I got a couple of them sold. Guys are waiting for them. They were ordered on August 29th.
No kidding.
Yeah. But part of it, you know, there's delays with everything nowadays, but part of it is because it's been totally redesigned.
Yeah.
The new air filter, it's not going to have a low top. It's going to have the same top as the 562 because that new filter setup doesn't fit underneath the old lower top cover.
Well, one of the things I hope we can get into today, I don't know if we're going to do it, but I'd like to get into is the updated 562, which is really something of interest to me.
Well, let's do one.
There's a lot of changes. Some of you see and some of you don't, but the 562,
Most of them you can't see.
the 562 has gone through a significant upgrade. I think we're going to get into this in greater granularity as we do some junk pile builds. Well, that's the obvious one, is the filter and filter holder.
The new filter setup. You can update any 562 to this setup. You don't have to take the carburetor out, just the bolts, and you just get that holder out. Each filter has its own soft gasket type material here, which is the key to the seal.
So you can get the filter holder and filter like we're going to do and put them on any of the old ones.
You probably want, you could maybe do one of yours today.
Yeah.
If you want.
Carburetors. My life with 562 ended at EL48.
Yeah, that was a couple carburetors ago.
What's the new carburetors?
It's the 1400 04, the 048. Some of this is they changed The fuel line now is not coming through the partition wall.
Right, goes straight up from the tank.
Yeah,
Where are the new carburetors built?
Sweden.
And the old carburetors were built in...
COVID country.
And the bottom end is fairly significantly upgraded. I don't know about cylinder, piston, or anything like that, but I know the bottom end is different.
Yeah, top end's really not changed. The bottom end is best explained in those service bulletins that I printed out for you, and you can maybe show a little bit of that with that short block that you have.
Yeah, we'll go do
But
that.
It's kind of hard to... So
It's a lot of stuff.
Yeah. Yeah, it's you know, and people aren't really complaining about these like they were in the early days. When we go in the back, we're going to tear through some real junk piles. And I feel bad because like yours is all like it went through the wash, and my stuff is gross.
No.
Just like tossed in the. Yeah, wait till you see it.
Okay.
And yeah, so I got a lot of cleaning to do. And then we're going to see, because you know, what we're going to do today is the beginning of junk pile builds meet auto tune.
That's correct.
You know, and that's kind of what we're trying to. We're going to have some fun in the back there with that stuff.
Yeah. $555 right there.
Right.
A clean one.
Well, here's the deal. In some of the development here, this is an earlier 555, and like I said, you know, it's only been, you know, like 7 months or whatever since we ordered them. But it'll be worth the wait because all the changes and improvements in the crankcase, everything else that took place on the 62 also go on the 555. But you can see some of the changes that have happened. This one, as you notice, this one's blue. This is a G model with the heated grips. Also, for guys that have never seen this, there's also thermostatically heats the carburetor. There's another heating plate in there on the way in to keep it from icing up. This isn't what people are thinking about when they're buying a heated grip saw. What they're thinking about is, oh God, this feels so nice. Because they do get warm, they get toasty.
Yeah.
So this is an older one. The new 555s are going to have that dark gray cover. But again, I mean, I don't know how to really and reinforce this point. There's a whole line of saws, you know, just underneath the XPs, like we were saying before, that people don't really pay attention to. And in some ways, you know, say, well, you know, the 555 is only like $75 less than this, and the 565 is only $100 less than the 572. But if guys were arguing different brands, they'd be bragging about, well, you know, this one's, you know, $100 less than that one. So apparently, you know, the $100 difference could be important in some arguments, and nobody else does this. You know, other companies, you get your pro stuff with the mag case, and then you want to drop, you know, what do we got below this in the same size? Well, we got a nice plastic saw for you, sir.
And lots of plastic too.
Yeah, a lot of plastic. So there's a lot of choices there. You know, it's kind of a parallel. You know, the pro saws have kind of a parallel thing with, you know, you got all these like 5 models, I call them, that end in a 5, and then you have all the XP versions. But these things, you know, really, you know, don't need to be ignored. You know, the real enthusiast, that's got to have every little bit of power, and even the XP's done enough, and he's going to spend $300 to have some guy get, you know, build more out of it. One way to look at it, like we've said in the past, this is your basic saw, and then you want a modded saw, well, the factory does it for you. You know, and it's just like for another $75 to $100.
You know, that's actually a pretty good point, is you can actually buy these saws from Husqvarna, and you don't have to mod them. There's a few saws out there where the only way you're going to get it to run good is to mod the darn thing.
Yeah, so I mean, here again, they deserve a little bit of a look. I think they've done. I don't know really what you would call them. Maybe, you know, it's, you know, having the things all drop down to the next lower number with the 5 there. I think that causes a lot of confusion. I'm not sure what the better option would have been to get them close. You know, should you have called it, you know, the 550 and the 549? You know, I don't know. None of it just doesn't make any sense. You couldn't call the 572 and then a 570 because there was a 570 on the 576 chassis. You could have called it the 570. I have no idea. Anyway, it does cause a lot of confusion. But for $750 for a 70cc saw with all that, with all those goodies, that's kind of, I think, kind of a steal.
Yeah.
Get it?
Yeah. I do.
And there's some other, 70cc options out there, which are, well built. Not that many, but really.
Yeah, I guess.
So you got stuff to pick from.
Yeah, and this, while this is more of a performance-oriented, pushing the edge kind of a saw, possibly you can argue that case. I don't think you can argue that this is not enough of a saw. That's more than enough saw.
Yeah.
I'm going to make a case that some of these saws like this, like the 555, over time are probably going to last a little bit longer. They're not quite as pushed to the edge. The physics of taking material and pushing them to the limits. Not revving quite as high, a little bit better.
Yeah, I read that when I had that demo and I sold it to a tree company. That's their standard for that size saw. That's all they run. And they always ran the 365s. They're like, they're all the same. We don't need to pay the extra $100.
Yeah.
Yeah, and it's kind of a, some guys would argue, well, I'm spending the extra money. Why not? And some guys were like, well, I'm keeping it.
So Bob is going to actually hammer on the old cripple a little bit. So I got to pull the rope on one versus the other and do a quantitative assessment. I hesitate to be on camera. That's got a fair amount of compression stock. Wouldn't you be surprised if that thing lit off? And this is the 545 with a spring assist.
Normal. This isn't the rubber. This isn't the rubber band start like on a still.
That's half the effort.
Yeah.
Well, yeah. Once you get it moving, that's half the effort.
Well, it's not one of these delayed spring things. You're supposed to pull that normal. You don't pull it slow and let it wind up. It's not it doesn't wind and release. It's just a reduced effort.
So it definitely is a reduced effort.
I mean, to me, that feels like the 543. I see people that can't pull the other saw, and then to see them actually pull that and look totally normal, it's like they got 10 years younger.
Of course, the point being, you got a pro-level saw that pretty much anyone can start. So when you're looking at the difference between the cookie cut mentality online thing, where you have to get to the nth degree and the extra tenth of a cut, versus that. Well, if the guy can't start that extra half a second in a cookie cut doesn't matter much, does it? But life with a saw, that might be a lot easier for people to deal with. It's worth the theoretical loss in power, of which I suspect there isn't much. And
then again, for $20, the other one starts just as easy.
Yeah, which is the point. I'm just going to leave you with that thought process right there.
All right, Craig. This is your saw, buddy. And anybody else can watch this. This is what happened. A lot of times these primers, now this is all empty and dried out really, but a lot of times on any of these saws that the primer, like it doesn't come back out, sometimes it's the primer, okay? Sometimes there's something going on in the saw and it's just like a blockage. And what you do is take this one primer line off, all right, and you take a little air and you just you don't go full blast, just get a little bit of air to clean that out and blow that in there, all right, and that'll sometimes clear what's there, or maybe if you got something stuck in there. But I've noticed a few times that I've probably done that like 20 times, where this thing just stays in, it won't come out. So there's something blocking, it won't pull the fuel through, so a quick little jab with the air. That's what I did. And of course now it's working good. I took this home and I must have made like 20 cuts with it. Of course I cleaned it off for you. So that's what it was. Let me put it back together so that when it makes its trip back to Minnesota,
Minnesota,
it'll will actually work. And a little, then I'm doing this for Craig, guys, because Craig bought the saw from me, and you know I got to take care of him because he's not just a customer; he's a buddy anyway. But yeah, normally like I don't want anything to do with guys shipping saws in. It's for shipped in work because there's just too much of it here to do. But because he bought this, you know, from us, you know, I got to take care of the guy. So that's what it was. And
Tech tip for the day.
should be coming home. Should be coming home this week. Let's get all those other parts for your 181 score that you got. I had all your 181 parts too, so I'm just going to throw them in the box for you.
Well, Bob pointed out a couple of things. One is this is a fairly common part. Spans more than a couple of saws. And that right there is a fairly common problem to some of the older 562s. And I don't know if this is an upgraded part, but it looks like it is.
There you go. Any of you guys scratching your heads saying, I wouldn't reuse the rope?
I don't have another rope. This is junk pile built.
So you got 3 kind of okay top ends.
One, no,
I've got 2, huh?
one of them I think is pretty shot.
Well, we can get back into the woods. Let's talk about what we're going to do, what we're going to do it with.
Well, I think it would be fun to get some of these junk piles going. So I want to see if I can put together another 562 is what I want to do. Yep, I've looked at this long enough and said, you know something, Walt, here,